Welcome back to the Imaginary Gallery. It's TJ, your host. We are covering what I've been calling the Psychopath bag of tricks. Been referencing Robert D. Hare's book, Without Conscience, The Disturbing World of the Psychopaths Among Us. And I don't know if you've looked into it or not, but there's a thing called the Psychopathy Checklist that I believe Dr. Hare came up with. It's basically a list of the characteristics. You check off a box for each characteristic the person displays. And of course, the rest must be done by a professional. But I'd say if you look at that list and somebody you know has pretty much every single thing on it, you can bet it's at least a toxic person. The last part of this section in the book is called a perfect score, and it refers to that checklist. I'm sure it would be anyone's question if it's possible to score so high that you meet every piece of criteria. He gives us a brief account of an offender that two independent assessors agreed should receive the maximum possible score on that psychopathy checklist. A score given to fewer than 1 in 200 serious offenders. Earl was a 40-year-old man serving a 3-year sentence for assault. Both assessors found the interview with him to be interesting, even exciting at times, because he exuded a captivating energy that kept them on the edge of their seats. At the same time, they were shocked and repelled by what he had to say, and the way he said it in such a casual, matter-of-fact manner that he discussed his crimes. One of the assessors put it, "I was really fascinated by this guy, but he was from another planet. He scared the out of me." Earl came from a stable, working-class family. He was the third of 4 children. He began problems with the society early in his life. In kindergarten, for example, he'd stabbed a teacher with a fork after she forced him to sit in his seat. At the age of 10, he was procuring young girls, including his 12-year-old sister, for sexual favors for his older friends. Trafficking. At the age of 13, he got convicted for stealing from his parents and forging their names on checks.
Yeah, I spent a few months in juvie,
Which is the juvenile detention center.
but I got away with a lot more than they caught me for.
Since then, there is very little Earl has not done. Most of it to other people. His record is littered with horrifying charges of robbery, assault, traffic violations, theft, rape, fraud, unlawful confinement, pimping, and attempted murder. Yet, he spent surprisingly very little time in prison. In many cases, the charges were dropped because the victim refused to testify, and in other cases, because of a lack of evidence, or because Earl was able to come up with a convincing explanation for what he had done. Even when convicted, he typically managed to obtain a very early parole, seemingly inexplicable in view of the behavior he displayed in the prison. As an entry in a psychological report tells the story, quote, "The most salient thing about Earl is his obsession with absolute power. He values people only insofar as they bend to his will or can be coerced or manipulated into doing what he wants them to do. He constantly sizes up his prospects for exploiting people and situations." Other prison files describe how, in his quest for power and control, he walks a fine line between inmates and staff and is both feared and admired by both sides. He's very skilled in the use of threats, intimidation, muscle, bribery, and drugs, and he, quote, "regularly informs on other inmates in an effort to save his ass and to obtain privileges. Orange is the new black. The con code means nothing to him unless he personally gets something out of it. His relations with ladies are as shallow and predatory as the rest of his behavior. He attests to having several hundred live-in relationships, ranging from days to weeks, and an unremarkable number of intimate contacts over the years. When asked how many children he's got, he said,
I don't really know, a few, I guess. I've been accused of being a father, but I'd say, blank you! How do you know it's mine?
He routinely terrorized an assaulted woman in his life. He sexually abused his daughter and raped her girlfriend. His propensities for sadistic sexual behavior carry over into prison, where he's well known for his aggressive homosexuality. One of the most striking features of Earl's personality is his grandiosity. Entries that are scattered throughout his files make reference to his dramatic, inflated, and pompous way of communication. As one of the assessors wrote,
"If I hadn't been so afraid of him, I would have laughed in his face at his blatant self-worship."
As Earl put it, quote,
I'm always being told by others how great I am and how there's nothing I can't do. Sometimes I think they're just shitting me, but a man's gotta believe in himself, right? I check myself out. I like what I see.
At the time of this interview several years ago, Earl was being considered for parole. In his application to the parole board, he had this to say:
I've matured a lot and don't see any future in prison life. I've got a lot to offer society, and I've worked hard analyzing my strengths and weaknesses. My goal is to be a good citizen, to live modestly, and have a loving relationship with a great woman. I believe I've become more honest and trustworthy. My reputation is sacred to me.
The interviewer commented,
The irony of the fact that Earl was widely known as a notorious bullshitter with dozens of aliases was not lost on me.
Surprisingly, the prison psychologist and psychiatrist thought that Earl had shown improvement during his current stay in prison, and on the basis of their dealings with him, they considered him a good parole risk. But as one of the interviewers said,
if even half of what he told me is true, he should never be let out.
Earl was aware that our assessments were strictly confidential, conducted as part of a research project in which they were legally and ethically prevented from communicating any of their findings to the authorities, unless he actually threatened to harm himself or to harm others. His persona with them, therefore, was more open than was the one he displayed in preparation for his parole application. As it turned out, Earl's parole was denied, and he began to accuse my interviewer of divulging what he had confided to him. The interviewer, fearing reprisal from Earl's friends on the outside, left on a prolonged trip to Europe and is now working in England. Earl was recently released from prison, and the interviewer has no plans to return to Canada, where I guess they live, in the near future. Sounds like the Clinton body count. But yes, that's a psychopath example, where somebody investigates Hillary Rotten Clinton for trafficking, and then they mysteriously end up dead before they can testify.
I am the Narcopath.
The truth was, I already had a steady boyfriend. We were just fighting when I met you, but of course I couldn't dare tell you this. That would blow my cover, because he didn't have much money. He didn't have a car that he owned. He didn't have a place without his nasty, trashy roommate, so I was banking on you. Another reason I got to use you was to show him just how happy I was without him. That would break his heart, and he deserved it. He was catching on to me anyway, so good riddance to him. You didn't have a clue, and you let me in, and I got pretty much all I wanted. Look, I'm only gonna tell you one more time. Quit smearing my name to anybody and everybody you talk to. I don't want anyone else. I just want to be alone. Those few boys I've been talking to, they're just friends. So what? I slept on the couch at his house. I didn't do anything. You have a dirty mind. What is wrong with you? Look, I'll make you a deal. Keep your mouth shut, and maybe I'll let you see me without my shirt on again, and you can suckle what you love. Otherwise,
knock it off.
And I couldn't help but hear that you happened to find it amusing that I ended up in the orange murder suit and was arrested. Laugh all you want, little fool. You're gonna get yours. You have no right to laugh at me. You have never suffered a day in your life. But that's all gonna change. And I'll see to it. Ta-ta.